Hi.
Hello.
I'm Cayley Purcell.
Hi.
So first I just want to thank Paige and Andrew for giving all of us leaders a chance to talk. I feel really humbled to be up here, especially when I'm coming after Sean and Jason, and then I won't give away the next 2 weeks, but the next speakers that are coming. I just feel really humbled to be up here and be able to talk to everybody and just kind of share a little bit about myself. So, I know a lot of you probably don't know who I am, and some of you do, or you know me by association of the 3 other Purcell people that are in the room. But I'm Cayley, and I am married to Colin, and that's us. We've been married for a whole 6 months, so I don't have a lot of advice. Yeah, so that's cool.
That's plenty of advice.
Yeah, that's true. And then it's just us, and I have a cat. If you can see, like, on my face, I have a big scratch on my face from him this morning. That's my cat, Maui. He's adorable. He's 8 months old, and I love him. He's pretty cute, and he likes to hide in everything, and he's adorable. So that's me. I'm a speech therapist. I work in a really small town called Foyle, Foyil. It's about an hour away from here. So I talk all day, so you'd think this would be no big deal, but I'm pretty excited about it. So that wasn't just for nothing. Telling about me kind of has a purpose, because all of those things that I've talked about would not happen if my plans hadn't failed, if a big chunk of my plans that I had for my life hadn't failed. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. This story kind of revolves around my first year of college, but I kind of have to go back a little bit before we go there. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in the church. I've lived in Broken Arrow my whole life. Went to Broken Arrow High School. I was in show choir, jazz choir, musicals, all that fun stuff. And so I really had a really good group of friends growing up. I'm still friends with most of the people that I met in like my 3rd grade class. And I always had really good friends. I never felt like I was missing out by the friends that I chose. And I really, really enjoyed my childhood and growing up and everything. And I really didn't struggle a lot with having friends or things to do. I was always busy, things like that. But not to say I never needed God's strength before I went to college. My parents got divorced when I was 11, so that was really hard. And I distinctly remember at being 11 years old and needing God's strength. But at the same time, I had my family. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. I had my siblings, and you know, I do remember praying for that and praying for that over the years. But I still had people around me, and I still had a support system. So as much as that required God's strength, I think this story that I'm going to tell, it was me on my own, and I felt very alone when I failed. So sometimes God has to take away our plans and our expectations for us to, I feel like, need Him, and really for us to be in a place to receive His strength. Because I think a lot of the time we're like, I can do this all by myself, like I'm fine. And if you know me, I'm very much like a planner, I'm a doer, I'm like, let's go, I can do this, and let's figure out a way to do this. And sometimes God has to kind of humble us a little bit. So the summer before college, I was ready to go. I was ready to get out. I was ready to go be on my own. I wasn't afraid. I was like, bye. I think my mom was really upset that I didn't want to stay at home. I was ready to go and do everything, and I'd had kind of a rough summer. Like, some personal things happened, and I just really was ready to make a fresh start, meet some new people. You know, I'm always talking to somebody. That's literally what I do for a living, so I'm pretty good at it. And so pretty much what I decided to do was go through Rush at college. And now, most of you haven't been to college, so I'll kind of tell you what that is. So that's like if you want to join a sorority. Now, guys, if you want to join a fraternity, that's like way easier, way more informal. It's super easy. But Rush for girls is like super, like, there are a lot of rules. But the whole point of that was like you were supposed to like get friends really fast. Like, you're supposed to be like belong to a group. There's like, I don't even know, like 300 girls, and it's a really easy way to connect with people really fast. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds fun. I don't mind dressing up and meeting a bunch of people every day for a whole week. But to preface this, like, Rush was great. This is not to scare you about college. This is not to say that like some of this is bad or anything. This is just what I experienced. I loved college. spoiler alert, but this was the way I thought what I should do. I was like, I like meeting people, let's do it. So it's kind of very regimented. So you show up and they give you a list of what you're supposed to wear each day, like Monday through, I think it was Monday through Thursday, and Friday was kind of the end part of it. So like I was supposed to wear like jean shorts and a certain shirt and like casual shoes the first day, and then the second day you're supposed to wear white shorts with a casual sandals and I think it was like a purple shirt. That's the second day. So it's super, and they like line you up, alphabetical order, you walk, you go to visit all of these houses that have girls in them, and you talk to people and you walk every day. So it was really fun, actually, for me, because I was just talking to people and I got to dress up. I don't mind that. And I had a really good experience. Like there's some days where you can only go to 8 houses, but maybe only 6 houses pick you, and so you only get to go to 6. But I got full parties every day, so I was like, sweet, like they must really like me. I think that's great. And so like the day I had to go to 8 houses, I went to 8. If you were able to go to 4 one day, I went to 4. So it was really fun, and nothing crazy happened. And I ended up getting picked into a house that I thought it was really good, and it was what everybody told me was one of the top 3 houses on campus. I don't know if that was true, but so I was like, okay, like did pretty well. They must really like me somehow. And I didn't really make it hidden that I was a Christian, or that's kind of what I wanted to find people that would want that kind of same thing. And I did find a Christian group of girls, and like I went to church with them and talked to them a lot, and hung out. But I really, as soon as I got in, I was like, I don't know, I don't fit in. Like they would talk about, I remember one time they were talking about, I can't even remember why I felt like I didn't feel like I fit in, but they were talking about like other fraternities, and like they seemed to know everything about every other fraternity and sorority on campus, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I didn't own Chacos, and I remember that being like a really like, you don't own Chacos? And I was like, no, like I don't know. And I just really, it was like small things like that I was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't fit in. I just feel like I don't fit in. I didn't know what like Tory Burch was either, and I remember that being a really big deal because I didn't know that. So I just slowly like felt myself being like, I don't fit in. I feel like I don't have anything in common other than that these girls were Christians. Like I went to church with them, and I was supposed to be able to fit in because we had the same like values and beliefs. And I just really started to feel really isolated, and I'm telling you, I've never felt like that before. And to this day, I still can't figure out like what it was that made me feel like I wasn't making connections with people. Like I would have a one-on-one conversation with somebody and it just felt so empty. And that's when I was like, okay, I got my attention. Like I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. So I really didn't have any close friends. I had a roommate, but we were like really good roommates, but not good friends. Like she didn't like touch my stuff, I didn't touch her stuff, but we didn't like hang out outside of just we lived together. And she was gone a lot. And so, didn't have any friends. I went into college. I did not know what I wanted to do when I went to college. But the major I picked, I was like, this is not what I want to do. And figured that out real quick. So, went to college, didn't have any friends. My major wasn't working out. And it was I just felt very alone. I never felt like that before. So I planned on how it was going to go. I was going to find a good group, be their friends. And as much as I tried, I was like, I'm going to be your friend. Like, I was bombing. Like, it was not working. So I really did feel like a failure. And when we fail and all of our expectations and plans just fall through, I think sometimes that's when God shows us how big His strength is, how much we need it, and how He provides in so many different ways. And so that's kind of what I'm going to pinpoint tonight on. And I was kind of trying to think about people in the Bible. There's a lot of people whose plans fall through or like get deterred in the Bible. But our Bible study went through 1st and 2nd Kings. I don't know when that was, last semester sometime, maybe over the summer. And so I kind of had some of those people in my head, and I thought about Elijah. And I am not a prophet, so I'm not relating myself to Elijah at all. But that guy was really cool. And he really trusted God with so much. and accomplished so much. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. So background on Elijah. So he was a prophet. I think there's something else up here. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I can't remember all this left from my head. So Elijah was really successful. He relied on God for a lot and was able to do a lot. So he commanded the rain to stop for more than 3 years. What? Like, I don't even understand. I mean, that's just crazy. He was fed by ravens. Like, ravens came and brought him food, like, because he was so desperate. He saw a small amount of flour and oil last for a long period of time. It just kept being there and somehow miraculously lasted for more than what it should have. And witnessed someone's son being resurrected. And the very famous Elijah story is he called down fire from heaven in front of the prophets of Baal. So, preface over that story, when that happened, the prophets of Baal are like, Baal's gonna light our fire and light it up, and it's better than your God. And Elijah was like, my God's greater. And he doused his fire in water and all this stuff to make it even more difficult to light on fire. And you know, they were praising Baal and he was praising God, and obviously God came down and lit the fire and showed them all up, and made them look really dumb. So now all of that has happened, and now while this whole thing is happening, it's King Ahab is the king. If you read about King Ahab, he's really awful. If you read more than just his story, like when we read through it, we're like, wow, this guy's really awful. And he's kind of a weenie. Like he is like, oh, I failed. And he goes into his room and locks himself in his room and cries and like refuses to eat because he looks bad. And so he's married to Jezebel, the famous Jezebel. And she is like very much like very wrathful, I'll say. And when he's doing that and whining, she's like, get up, you're the king, like come on, do something about this. And so that's kind of where we're picking up, was after God has lit the fire for the prophets of Baal, and this is where our scripture is going to come from. So I'm going to read half of it first and then kind of talk and then do the other half. So verses 1 through 4 say, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah. May the gods strike me and kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them. Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. That was a big deal to leave your servant behind, because that's like your buddy, that's your guy that does everything for you, and he left him behind, and so that really meant that he was in despair. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. So Elijah literally has just had a breakdown. He's had success after success. Like God keeps providing for him. He keeps being the prophet that he feels like he's called to be. He keeps having so many successes. And now he's had a death threat on his life. And King Ahab has shown that he, will be vengeful to people who don't follow what he wants. And so he's terrified. And so God has been there for him through these successes, and he just wasn't expecting this, I don't think, because this hasn't really happened to him before. So he feels scared and he feels worthless, and this threat he sees it as a sign that he has failed. He's like, I thought I was doing this right, but now people want to kill me, so maybe I did something wrong. And he runs away to be alone. And, I mean, that's kind of how I felt. I'm not talking about I didn't receive a death threat, but when you feel so alone that you're just like, I just want to hide and I just want to be, I just don't know what to do, this is how he feels. He's never felt the feeling of not feeling like that God has his back. I think he really is going through his head and being like, God, like, I don't want to die. Like, don't send somebody after me to kill me. And I think also, he sits down under a tree and is just sitting there, and I'm sure he's just contemplating what the next few hours and few days are going to look like. So verses 5 through 8 say, then he lay down and slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came again and touched him and said, "Get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. The first thing that jumps out at me at this is like, bake bread and jar of water to last you 40 days and 40 nights. That has to be some kind of miracle. Because, and also when you get really sad, you eat a lot. I don't know, I do that. Like when I'm really sad, I'm like, oh, I just want to sit on my couch and eat. And I'm sure he was probably like, oh, like, I just want to eat. And it's probably miraculous that I gave him that much strength, because it would not for me. So he's wanting to die, and this angel appears, which is kind of crazy. But he's like, dude, get up and eat. And then, lets him rest. And I think that's the biggest thing we take away. Like, Elijah gets to rest here. He's fled for his life. He's been obviously very busy and has had a lot of stuff happen to him, and he gets to rest. And I think when God is giving us strength, that's the first thing that he kind of gives us, is a place to rest. Like, God is our place of rest. So for me, I did feel I can understand what Elijah's feeling. I wasn't, wanting to die, but I think it's one of those things where you just feel like, I had this whole big thing in my head, and it's not working out, and I'm trying, and nothing I was doing was wrong. It just wasn't working for some reason, and I could not, for the life of me, understand why. And Elijah felt the same way. He's just like, why is this happening? Why does someone want to kill me? So God responded to Elijah's despair by providing him with strength. But God does not just provide strength in a, like, here's some food and rest, now go on. God provides different kinds of strength. So I'm going to talk about 3 kinds of strength that God provided Elijah and can provide for all of us. So the first thing, he provided him with physical strength. So giving him the food, giving him the water, giving him the rest. And I think, like I said, rest is the most important thing. I mean, I feel like when we are just so burnt out and we feel like a failure and we are just feeling very unworthy and unaccepted, I think the biggest thing we can do ourselves is just rest in God and just try not to think, try not to overthink, just rest and sit there and try and understand and try and just feel what God is trying to do. So provide Elijah with food, water, and rest. He provides emotional strength at the same time. Do you ever feel like, when you're little and you're sick or you're not feeling well, or even now, if my mom did this for me, I still feel very loved. But when your mom brings you something, something either good to eat or just is coming up to check on you, the act that she's doing that doesn't give you strength, but you feel like, you're like, wow, my mom loves me, or whoever it is loves me. And feeling that someone cares about you and feeling that someone understands that you're hurting is that you receive that emotional strength. It's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but when you feel loved, that leads to you having more motivation. When you feel God's love, especially, I think we feel like we have more motivation to go and do what we want for Him and what we feel like we should do, because we know that He cares and we know that He is there with us in whatever we're feeling. I think also God providing emotional strength gives you a kind of peace that someone's with me. I'm not alone. I'm not, as much as I felt alone and as much as we all feel alone, I think He gives us some kind of peace in that it's going to be okay, even though what I planned is not happening. For spiritual strength, God definitely doesn't give us the first 2 kinds of strength without giving us spiritual strength. And it doesn't say this specifically, like this is God giving spiritual strength to Elijah. But Elijah goes on in his life to do so much more for the Lord, and including 40 days and 40 nights walking to Mount Sinai. And Elijah goes on to Elijah finds Elisha and kind of takes him on, kind of becomes a mentor to Elisha. And when Elijah's gone, Elisha takes what he's learned from him and goes on. And I think, he does so much more after this moment. And there's no way he could have done that without having some spiritual strength, where his faith was strengthened because of God, that God provided so much for him and gave him the strength to go on and keep doing all these hard things, because he didn't know if he was going to get another death threat or not. He didn't know if he was going to die the next day. But the fact that he is with Elijah and is with him so much, it gives him this part where he's like, okay, I have faith that God is going to carry me through this, and I know he's provided for me, I feel his love, and I feel strong, and I can go on. It kind of makes me think of spiritual strength, kind of reminds me of what you feel like after camp, when you're like, oh my gosh, like I've spent so much time around such awesome people with awesome conversations, and I have felt like the power of God, like in worship at camp, when you're just like, wow, this is incredible. Like you feel so rejuvenated and like ready to go into the world and just have so much faith about that God can do whatever he wants with you, and that you are able to, confidently go. That's kind of what I feel like you get with that spiritual strength. You're like, all right, I can do this. Like I have faith that God is going to carry me through this. So to say all that, when we ask for strength, God goes above and beyond what we might think. We might think he's just like, because like when I think of like initially asking for strength, I'm like, okay, well, I'm asked for strength and God's going to make me feel more awake and, not so hungry and maybe not so thirsty, and like I can make it, I don't know, like if you're taking a test, you're like, okay, like I'm going to be able to stay awake and like focus. He goes so much more beyond than just like your physical strength of being able to pay attention or stay awake or not be hungry. So coming off of Elijah's example and kind of coming back to me, so for me, because, it sounds pitiful, but because I didn't really have any friends and like I couldn't find a group, and I felt like I didn't do much outside of like go to class, I spent a long time by myself. And I had never really done that before. I'd never really been by myself in a way that day to day I had my own plans. I didn't have a ton of plans to like do anything else other than go to class and eat and, study and whatever. I had a lot of time by myself and a lot of time to rest. And because I had all of that rest, I think it strengthened me because I spent more time praying, like day to day walking, praying, talking to God, on the way to class, when I got back. I mean, I just feel like I was very, it was a time where I was very much just talking to God constantly. And I have to say, I to this day, like that is the most I've talked to God probably in a continuous span over a year. And because I had all that time to rest, I kind of felt what it was like to be, like, knew how to be by myself, kind of figured out what I wanted. I figured out a new major in that time, and it was speech pathology, and that's what I do now. But I'm very much a person that doesn't stop. I kind of am always going. And I mean, I think I would have figured out what I wanted to do, but I think it was so much more clearer when I didn't have so much going on. And I listened. I had a lot more time to listen. So because I had that rest, physical rest, it kind of led to some other things that happened in my life. And emotional strength, God really did speak that I belonged to him a lot. I constantly would have reminders that, I am the Lord's, like he loves me and I am treasured, and that is really all I need. And that gives you a very good sense of security in a place where I had no affirmation of that I was, being there for anybody. I didn't have a ton of conversations, but I was talking to God a lot, and I just felt like I had a purpose, and that this time had a purpose. I learned that over several months. And then spiritual strength, I have more faith in God because of that year, because I feel like I failed so hard that I really didn't have anywhere to go because I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. And when I kind of figured out, like, okay, this is what I want to be, this is the kind of person I want to be, what I want to do, that gave me more faith in what God's plan is for me, and it gave me more faith along the line that I really needed. I've had a lot of things happen in my life since then that I've needed to just stop and just have faith in the Lord that He's going to carry me through and He has a plan. And I'm not so afraid of that at all. I have a lot more faith in God because of that, because He carried me through a really, really hard time when nothing I was doing was going right. So kind of looking ahead, in that time this is not the answer for every situation, but I was like, I think I need to transfer schools. I think I need to go somewhere, and didn't think I was fitting in, and I was just like, I think I need to go. And I really felt, honest to goodness, I felt such a peace about that, that this was just a year where I just need to learn and listen, and that was really, really good for me. And so kind of made the choice, just transferred schools, and ended up in new school, and I found a Christian group, a Christian sorority, and Paige was actually my pledge trainer, and it was the best choice that I had made. I found awesome girls, and two of the girls from there were in my wedding, and I found some of my best friends. I really did, and that sounds so cheesy, but I left, and if I had gone there a year ahead, I wouldn't have had the same experience that I had when I did go. And so I'm really thankful for that timing. And I really did go through just such a lonely period of my life. And but the lessons that I learned when I failed are the lessons I still carry every single day. I can't tell you how much God's strength has played a role in my life, and asking for it and feeling it and knowing that He's got a plan. And you know what? I'm okay with that. And I'm telling you, I struggle with it. I definitely don't. Like I said, I'm a planner. I like to know when things are happening. I like to know what's going to happen. But I have a more faith-filled life because of that. And I'm not saying, do not think that making plans is bad. If you know what you want to do when you go to college, go do it. I know tons of people like that. This is my story. It's no one else's. But just know that sometimes just things just don't go the way we think they are, and they might not all happen at once like it did for me. It could just be one little thing that goes off the rails, and you're like, oh well, dang it! What do I do now? It doesn't define your life, and it gives you a chance to know God in such a deeper way. It really does. And just like Elijah, he just kind of needs some time to just receive God's strength, not be so busy, not be so, confidence is good, but just knowing that He's there, and having some time to rest and receive God's strength and go on to do greater things was so necessary for him. The last thing I kind of want to touch on, I have more evidence in my life of God working, physical evidence in myself and stories I can tell, I'm telling you right now, about how God can provide for you. And I just want you to know that the story of your failures have a purpose. I didn't think that this story would really matter until now, but every single failure has a purpose. We all have something to learn, and we all just sometimes need to stop and know that God is stronger than anything and any plan. And I really the top thing I want you to know is that God just cares. He cares so much, and even though He might not say yes to every plan you have, that doesn't mean that it's bad or that you failed, or yeah, it's a failure, but you are not a failure, and He just cares so much about you that sometimes He just needs you to stop and receive the strength that He has for you, because it's so much better than trying to do it on your own and trying to figure out your life on your own. So all of the story of your failures have a purpose. God has a purpose, and his strength is so much better than trying to do it on your own. Will you guys pray with me? Dear Jesus, I thank you so much for each person in here. This is an awesome group. I am so humbled to be up here and to be able to share a story that you gave me. Thank you for the strength that you provide all of us, that you provide Elijah, that we have an example of someone who was so successful but just needed a moment to rest and be with you and receive your strength, God. I thank you so much for loving us enough to sometimes help us fail, make everything in our path stop so that we can take some time and feel your strength. God, I pray over everyone here. I pray over the small groups, and I pray that everybody would just listen and pray for your strength more today than they did yesterday. In your name I pray, amen.